All right. Well, Happy New Year again, and we're back again to talk about another very important issue, especially with the legislative session coming up. It's nice to be joined here with a lot of legislators, and some of the people here are really working tirelessly on so many of the issues affecting our kids and foster care, and happy that Alex Mayer, my secretary, is here as well. He's working hard on that every day as well. You know, last month, we talked a little bit about some of the progress that we've made in the first year of my administration on West Virginia's child welfare system. We're not here to tell you the work is done. This is a very difficult area. We're going to keep working very, very hard. But I do think we're making some progress, and it's important that we continually update people about what's going on. I said it at the beginning when I took office. I'll say it again. Bringing our kids home is one of my top priorities. That's why I was really excited last month to announce what I'm calling, I don't know what you guys will end up calling, but the Bring 'em Home Fund, which is a pretty good name to make sure that we have all those kids that unfortunately have been sent out of state for, it seems like endless decades, so long a period of time. We want to get them back home, right? I think all of us share that goal. And we thought long and hard about it, but we knew that we had to make some upfront investments to help make that happen. And we're excited to work with you guys on that process. I think we can all agree that we should put our kids' interest first. So it's very good. But if we're serious about fixing the system overall, once again, we got to work on the fundamentals. There's usually not an easy solution to every problem. And, you know, I tend to want to make sure that we're working on the basics all the time, because too often, you know, in politics, generally, people want to thump their chest and say everything's great and we have the silver bullet. Life's a little bit more complicated, right? And so I think we have to be proactive. We have to address challenges ahead of time. We have to, in the child welfare system, help people earlier. We have to stabilize situations sooner. And we have to prevent unnecessary involvement whenever possible, system involvement. One of the things that we do, though, is we look at best practices. And we look at different programs that are working and things that we've been doing as a department over time, and pilots and tests that have been out there for a number of years. And we came upon one earlier this year working with Star Academies. As you guys know, there have been 4 pilot programs for Star Academies that have been operating. I think there's been 3 that have been operating in counties over a 1-year period, and we have some good feedback from that, and one, I believe, in Logan County that's been operating for a 3-year period. But Star Academies, they're a school within a school, and they focus on re-engaging a lot of the at-risk middle school kids at critical points in their lives. So I've learned a little bit about this program, and I feel fortunate about that. And I've talked to Tate Reeves about it and Governor Landry about it. They've actually been doing this. One of the good things about serving as governor, you get to talk to some of your colleagues from time to time, and they've talked about some of the success they've had. And these Star Academies, they're inside existing schools. There's a small number of classrooms that are transformed into immersive learning environments where these students can receive core academic instruction, and they can be paired with hands-on, career-connected, project-based learning. Pretty good. It's a great place to focus on STEM and real-world skills in these places. Maybe even more importantly, we know that a lot of these kids they're interacting with, it's not just the at-risk kids, it's a lot of everyday kids that they're going to be learning how to interact and behave even better than they did in the past. Because they're walking the same halls as their classmates. I think there's some value in that. They're eating in the same cafeteria. They're just learning in different classrooms, focusing on their unique needs. Each Star Academy, we know, can serve up to 80 students per year and generally operates on a 3-year to 5-year cycle. And that could mean that you could get up to 240 and 400 students per school. In West Virginia, as I mentioned, we had the 4 pilot programs in Philippi, Martinsburg, Logan, and I believe in the west side of Charleston. And we're seeing that they're already producing some strong results in math and English scores. But it's on the behavioral side that we're really encouraged. You know, we've seen here, I think, Alex, you have some of these stats, that 81% decrease in behavioral incidents. Wow, think about that. It's pretty good. 63% increase in attendance. That's significant. And I think for everyone involved, we're encouraged by those kinds of numbers. We know that from my conversations with Mississippi and Louisiana and learning about this program, states like Mississippi, Louisiana, South Carolina, in part through these academies, have seen absenteeism drop by as much as 89%. Wow, that's a big problem in West Virginia. Discipline referrals fell up to 88%, and up to 95% of the students at these academies remained on track to graduate. Good statistics, better than what we've had in West Virginia, and certainly we think something that could be very beneficial for our state. This expansion of the program would be funded using existing TANF dollars, the Temporary Assistance for Needy Family monies, and so we think that it's not going to require existing new monies, but we're going to have to work with you on some of the language. If you guys are open for that, that's important. But we think it's important to intervene early and connect learning to opportunity. So the Star Academy system, I think it's going to help keep kids engaged in school and reduce some of the risks that lead to foster care involvement. And it's the main issue I wanted to bring people here to talk about. Look, what we're seeing right now, we'll probably have for this initiative about 8 new programs. That's about $8 million or so. And then that's be over the prolonged period of time. Then there'll be another 8 programs broken down into 4 one year, 4 another year, and that's about 4.2 each year. So we'll work through the exact numbers with you, but to give you a sense as to the scope of the program, we think this could be very, very powerful as another way to improve test scores of our kids and, once again, have early intervention with at-risk families. That makes a big difference. Second reason we're here today, and we're just beginning on the faith-based side, we want to make sure we're helping people understand what we're doing on the faith-based initiatives here in West Virginia. We know that there are a lot of churches and communities that are very active addressing people that fall through the cracks in the child welfare system, right? We know churches play a fundamental role in doing good things to help our kids' family. Well, over the years, I know from my discussions as Attorney General and talking with people in the community, the churches want to feel like there's opportunity to work closely with people in the department. We think it's critical that West Virginia have a better organized system of people within the department who are positive, who are helping to organize, working with these churches, facilitating these longer-term community-based relationships, having more of a local presence. So we want to make sure that on the faith-based side, that Human Services is working more directly with the churches, and we think that could make a big difference. Better coordination, earlier intervention, making sure the churches know about all the programs we're doing. And so this is more education and involvement. Let me just turn this phone off. And when that engagement happens, I think it will lead to many positive things. We know that a lot of congregations are not utilized fully to help in this area, so we're going to try to reach out more proactively in the year ahead. And I want to let people know about that because I think if we can connect them with the child welfare system through that coordination, it makes a big difference. I think you need a sustainable, community-powered support network to strengthen the families and to eliminate some of the problems that we've had. So we're hopeful churches can play an important role. We also are going to focus more on education for truancy diversion. You know, one of the things that I was struck with when I started learning more about the child welfare numbers is that we have a lot of kids that sometimes go through the court system, and sometimes kids get sent out of state, they get put into different circumstances. But sometimes there's not a separation. They're real kids with severe mental health issues, and they have to be addressed. And then there are kids that they're absentee, and they're truant from school, but they're not in the same condition as all the other kids. Better understanding the differences, the types of kids, so that it's not a one-size-fits-all situation, I think is really, really important. And so we want to put expanded focus on truancy diversion. And so, having more mentorship and working with the truancy courts. I know we want to sit down with the Supreme Court and the courts to continue to talk about what they're doing in terms of their court programs so that everyone, including the courts, can be better educated. And there are better systems for distinguishing kids that have very severe mental health care needs versus kids that, quite frankly, are like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. People want to have absenteeism. They have fun. I'll be the first to tell you, when I was younger, I sometimes played hooky, and, I generally did well in school, but, there are kids, and I think I turned out okay. So we want to make sure we distinguish the kids that really have the severe mental health issues from others. And I think if you can do that right and be more effective at truancy diversion, you actually can see significantly fewer CPS referrals tied to non-safety issues. And if we can minimize the number of overall CPS referrals or investigations, boy, that saves a lot of money. I've been told that the average CPS investigation runs between $3,000 to $8,000. If you add another couple thousand for additional court cost, that's a lot of money. If you can be proactive, it makes a big difference. But I think equally important, we want to keep more kids in school. When they're in school, they're learning, they're growing, they're not running around the streets, they're not causing mischief, and I think that we want to do everything we can at the outset to keep our kids there. Interesting statistics: if you end up staying in school and you graduate, you make it all the way, that actually contributes an extra $200,000 to $250,000 in lifetime economic benefit for the state. So the state is pushing for these kids to do well. So we have a number of these initiatives that we're working on. We have the Keep Them Home, the Bring Them Home Fund. We obviously have the Star Academies. That's a major initiative, and we're excited to work with the legislature on that. And of course, better coordination, education on truancy diversion, and on our faith-based systems. All good things. But we have to keep working. I'm not here to announce that we've solved every problem. But at the beginning, and Amelia, you may remember this, I promised that I would keep you updated as we have developments and that we'll face the music to deal with the challenges that we have. And that's what we're here to do. But I'm excited to work with the legislature because I think they share the same goals to improve this. And I won't say that all the problems are over, but I will say that at least if people can see that we're making slow but sure progress and we're protecting our kids, that's a great thing to do. And that's what we're working on. So that's what we wanted to come here and talk about today. And I'm glad that we have such great attendance from the legislators. I see beyond everyone up here, I see Vince Deeds back there, and I see J.B. Akers. So these are people, and everyone here working hard to try to help improve child welfare in West Virginia. And we've been working with others who are not here as well. And we're excited for the legislative session ahead. I think that we have to keep making progress, slow but sure. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Alex Mayer, who's been helming a lot of these efforts. Alex, appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Well, good afternoon. I think it's afternoon now. I want to first say thank you to the governor for his leadership in this effort. This is a lot of different things, a lot of moving parts, but, I think what today is really a representation of beginning to move forward in that preventative effort, right? We talk a lot about primary prevention at the department, and I think what the governor has outlined today is a good example of some of those steps forward in establishing primary prevention in the state of West Virginia in order to move things forward. And that's really how we're trying to begin to make progress in the child welfare system. While we have current issues to address, there's also things that we can do up front, upstream, as we often say in the child welfare system, that we can do to start reducing the impact and the involvement of child welfare, later on when folks, leave school. Kids who don't receive an education, do not graduate, are at higher risk for being involved with the child welfare system as adults. So, these efforts are a continued effort to reduce that involvement, provide better supports to families and children. And I think too, just to call out specifically the faith-based initiative. The work with the faith-based community is key as we continue to work forward in changing and revamping the child welfare system in West Virginia. Communities I've mentioned before are essential, and faith-based communities are an integrated piece to that community. So I'm really excited to, be able to really go full speed ahead on this effort with the churches and other faith-based groups across the state, because I think that's a really key area as we begin to move forward and begin to make change within the child welfare system. So, sir, I appreciate all your leadership and look forward to working with you more.
Thank you, absolutely. If any of the legislators, you want to say a few words? Grateful, we've got some great leadership here.
Well, I think we have, after a year of new eyes being placed on the problems and the difficulties with our governor and with the secretary, I think we can now expect that things will begin to get some traction and move in the right direction, and I certainly applaud that. We have many issues that we need to address. These are not all of the issues, of course, as mentioned, but as a legislator, I certainly am interested in helping children, helping families, and being able to move our people in a good direction. I thank the people of West Virginia for staying here. We've had a lot of them that have run off. And I thank you for staying. Amen. And we who have stayed, let's band together and let's make it better. And let's applaud the steps in the right direction. And for those things that are still left hanging, let's get together and let's get those stakeholder meetings going. And let's continue to make progress in the right direction. Thank you for your leadership, Governor and Secretary Mayor. We appreciate everything that you are doing and applaud your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura?
Thank you. As Senate Health Chair and a mother of 2 young children, children's issues, including the foster care system, is such an important issue to me. Last year, we passed a comprehensive foster care reform package. I am so excited today that Governor Morrisey and Secretary Mayor are going to continue this work, because for about a decade, we have been failing our children. I believe that every child in West Virginia should stay in West Virginia, and the Secretary and the Governor have made great strides to keep our children in West Virginia and out of hotel rooms. And so I'm very excited for these initiatives. I look forward to working with the Governor and Mr. Secretary in this coming legislative session, and I hope that we can actually help our children that are in most need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you want to say a few words. Appreciate it. Delegate?
Thank you very much. As the governor stated, we've been treading upriver for a while now, and we certainly didn't get here overnight, and it's going to be a slow, steady progress to try to claw back and get our kids back on track. So I'm looking forward to working with both of you, and thank you so much for your initiatives to get started. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, we appreciate it, and I know there are a couple legislators in the back. I don't know if you want to say any remarks, but I appreciate your attendance. All right. Well, we have a lot going on. It's a busy week, but I'm happy to field any questions that the press may have. I'm going to open up the second press conference of the year by Stephen Allen Adams.
Well, I have a question in regards to Star Academies. Of course, earlier last year you signed the Student Discipline Bill, Senate Bill 109. I know it allows for behavioral intervention programs.
Sure.
Some counties have that, some don't. It allows them to partner with different groups. Allows for creation of alternative learning centers. Have you had any talks with the Department of Education or any counties in regards to whether Star Academies, this initiative, could possibly be that type of program, especially for counties that don't already have any type of alternative center for those kids with the most discipline?
So I know that our team has had conversations with the Department of Education on a lot of the details, and I know there's been a lot of enthusiasm about Star Academies as playing a more broader role in the process, because people think Department of Ed encouraged by the data that we saw, and not just what we're seeing in West Virginia, but what we're seeing in other states. So I think there are there are ongoing conversations between Department of Ed and our team, and I am very hopeful this could be one piece of the solution. Like anything, it's not going to be the whole solution, but if you have something that works and really changes the numbers along the lines of what I was talking about, 85, 89%, my God, we'd be foolish not to look at these things at least, because we need to dramatically increase the number of kids that graduate and ultimately are engaged productively in our society. So I know that there have been conversations going on. I can't, specify all of those, but yeah. Amelia.
I'd like to hear more about the importance of prevention, how that might decrease the number of kids coming into care. And I wanted to ask that because I feel like that's talked about a lot, that we need to reduce the number of kids coming into our foster care system. Second question, every session we hear floor speeches or see bills that kind of look at what lawmakers will say restoring the nuclear family or making it more difficult for CPS to take kids. Do you see prevention being more the way we need to go as far as reducing that number? Are there CPS reforms? Is it both? Kind of, what's your response to that? Is that been?
You could go. I may have some thoughts on that. I'm going to let you start it, but I have some, but go ahead.
Not never mind.
Yeah, because when you mention nuclear family, I have distinct thoughts about that.
No, so I appreciate the question. I think in terms of prevention, right, I think the child welfare system is complex in that we have children that, could come into the system, currently in the system, and those that, are out of the system, right? So I think you have to look at all pieces. I think prevention is a key part, though, to the overall success and reform in child welfare. So while it's not, I think, the only thing we have to be focusing on, it's a key part in the reforms that we're going to be putting in place and moving forward with here in West Virginia. So as I mentioned, the primary prevention piece is really the further upstream, right? So we talk about some things that we can do ahead of a child coming into care, but if there are things that we can do far in advance of a child ever touching the child welfare system or ever getting a referral, that's really what we want to focus on, right? So I think it's a continuum of prevention. I don't think there's, kind of like the governor had made reference to, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, but it's, that incremental step towards, making change within the child welfare system in the realm of prevention. But again, I think really focusing on those primary prevention models that we've seen success in other states. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm going to add something just because when I served as the Attorney General, I used to spend a lot of time talking with parents who were working hard to stay involved with their kids, and sometimes they had a lot of frustrations with the CPS system. And as the AG, I had limited authority to do that because you followed your client, right, the state agency. That's why you're seeing a lot of focus and activity on this in a way that I think hopefully should be assuring to the public that we care about our kids. But at the end of the day, we're going to have a much better situation for child welfare when our families are healthier, when our families are stronger, when the community bonds remain tight. And when I read about and I talk to or go down to McDowell County or I go to some of the counties where you have such a large percentage of kids being raised by grandparents, and you look at some of the statistics across the state in terms of how our kids are getting raised, you've had a lot of people that are disabled. You've had a lot of people that were really caught in a drug culture, and therefore the kids got ripped away from them. So there's a broader issue going on that we have to always keep our mind focused on. Number one, we need to have strengthened communities and people with good paying jobs. That matters tremendously. One of the points I emphasize for our rural health grant is that we're trying to create a virtuous circle. And that if you could actually improve the healthcare outcomes, people, even if you move it 2%, let's assume we could make progress in our workforce participation 2%. That's going to improve productivity. It's going to increase the number of people on the workforce, but then it's also going to strengthen the economy. And when you have that, you also, when you have more strength and more jobs and more people working, it's going to strengthen family lives as well because people are not going to be struggling as much within their homes. And I think addressing the economic issues as well as some of the social issues that come, the drug problem, some of the issues we've seen with disability down south, there are a lot of things that require work. And we try to look at all of these issues because they all feed into the child welfare problem. And the more we keep kids within a traditional family unit, I think the better. Next question.
Mine is about homeschooling. So in the past, pieces of legislation like Rayleigh's Law have gone into place to put protections on children who are homeschooled, and abused.
I'm sorry, is this about today?
Yes, but.
Okay, go ahead.
So, and you're talking about, CPS and.
Sure.
Everything like that. Will protecting, putting guardrails on when, you can't see them at school and everything like that, putting guardrails or.
Guardrails around what?
On homeschooling. Like, people, when they're able to.
Look, I trust the parents to take care of their kids, so I'm not sure what you're referencing, but what I could say is this: I think it's important that our kids are always brought up in the best and proper environments, and if there are complaints that are going to get made, they're all going to get addressed. People can't abuse their kids, but I don't know the particulars you're suggesting. We're not looking for a whole new regulatory scheme for parents.
Okay, I guess that, because in that, there was Rayleigh's Law that was.
I'm sorry?
Rayleigh's Law.
Okay.
After the girl, it was a girl that had abuse, and, there was also.
Okay, I don't know what you're reading from, so I don't know all the details, but happy to. Do you want to explain it to us?
I mean, I can send more of the details, like.
Okay.
To be, but another part of the question was, you talked about like the cop being more cost efficient because of how expensive removals can be, and we don't want
Sure.
Wants to prioritize not removing families. Do you think de-incentivizing removals could potentially put children in a dangerous situation?
No, I mean, look, I want to make sure, I've said all along that the long-term goal is to make sure that we have fewer kids that within their system. For anyone to make that into a bad thing is a pretty crazy idea, right? The goal is to make sure that you have more kids in nurturing, loving families and supportive communities. But obviously, if you can get those numbers down lower, that generally is a good reflection on the health and status within a community. So I'd rate that very, very positively.
I just have two questions. Can you state the specific bills that you're asking lawmakers to push ahead on the session and address the issues that you laid out? And my second question is, education and child welfare reform seem to be the big talking points today. But how specially are we planning to address that?
Yes, so we talked about a couple different initiatives today, and we're obviously very pleased to be joined with the legislature because we're in the process of working with them, we're meeting with the leadership, we're meeting with committees, and I think you're going to see some of these ideas manifest themselves in legislation. So to be specific, we talked about the Bring 'em Home Fund, right? That would require some legislative initiative, and I talked about having a seed capital, I believe, of $6 million, and then we'll create that system. So we've been working, we have draft language. I don't know if it's finalized or not, but we'll be working closely with the relevant committees of jurisdiction on that. So any of the initiatives that require legislative assistance, obviously we'll be collaborating with the legislature on that. And later this week, we'll probably do a deeper dive into our broader legislative agenda. Yesterday, I previewed some issues relating to tax and economic development. Today, we're talking a little bit about child welfare, but there'll be more and more information to come, and this will be a collaborative process with them as opposed to, hey, this particular bill number or not. Any other questions that you may have? Henry, how you doing, man?
Good, sir. Happy New Year.
All right.
Hey, just real quick, something I wanted to piggyback off on yesterday.
Sure.
That's at 5 to 10%.
Yeah.
Just what programs, agencies, or services would need to be reduced in order to balance the budget to make sure that proposal?
Yeah, so I think that one of the goals I've always had in West Virginia is to grow the economy. And I think it's important that we're always looking for different ways to lure more people in. I've talked a lot about the importance of net migration and to becoming more attractive. So if you have more people, those are also more taxpayers. That's one thing that we have to do. Second, one thing we saw from yesterday is as we had lowered the state income tax, I believe about 27% or so in recent years, we see that there's still been significant money's coming in terms of consumer sales tax, and the income tax has been remarkably strong in terms of the revenues that have come in. So I do think that when you lower taxes, you do see the market react, and I expect that that will happen. When you put a budget together, you look at priorities. I think one of the top priorities has to be returning money back to the people. It's the people's money, and so that's important. But at the same time, our budget is going to reflect strong investments in the core services that matter for West Virginians, and we'll be able to defend that. You will see the product of that in, I guess, a week and a day, right, when the budget comes out. And then at one of these events, you know, I'll be happy to field questions for you about what you think of our priorities. But I feel really good that our priorities are going to be on returning more money back to the people, creating a regulatory environment that's second to none to lure more individuals and companies here, focusing on education, which is really critical. There'll be initiatives pertaining to HOPE, but also with respect to K through 12 that we're going to be talking about. I don't want to get too far ahead of announcements I may be making prior to this State of the State, but education is always central to our state's success, and obviously investments in infrastructure and other areas. But I can tell you, I've gone through the budget line by line. I've been working with our team for months, and we want to make sure we're making good decisions that work for the state. Any final questions that people may have? Well, I want to say thank you all for coming. I'm very grateful that you're here. You guys are doing some terrific work. We're excited to partner with you beginning next week. It's a long time coming, but we're thrilled to have a really productive year. I know that during an election year, people worry, how much can you get done? I look at the people up here. You guys want to get a lot done, don't you? Absolutely. I think it'd be incredible to get a lot done, and I'm excited to work with you all on that. Thank you, and God bless. You're welcome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Those are good things.
Good. So awesome. Nice to see you. Thank you.